A few weeks ago, I was at the Collaboratory in New York. It's this unique gathering of Jewish innovators in the United States, people who come together to re-envision Jewish life and take the wisdom and the culture that have sustained us for thousands of years and make it relevant to the 21st century. Now, in some ways, it's a bit like an annual car show where you see the newest models of engagement. A smartphone app that allows you to place your sins on a virtual scapegoat for Yom Kippur, a lightning round case study forum for problem-solving innovation stumbling blocks. But what stuck with me the most, it wasn't an app, it wasn't a session, it was a story. My friend Ray is a coach and a facilitator in this Jewish innovative sphere. And a few weeks before the conference, she went out for an afternoon lunch with a group of her friends. Now, this group is notorious for being difficult at restaurants. Everybody has something that is sure to drive the waiter crazy. And sure enough, as soon as they started ordering, it happened. Is the soup vegetable-based? One of the friends asked. Well, said the waiter, I don't think so, but if you'd like, I can have the kitchen take some of our fresh summer squash and whip it up into a meat-free bisque. And then the next friend orders and says, you know, I'd really love a soda, but I see that you only have Diet Coke. I don't know, I'm more of a Coke Zero person. I guess I'll just have some iced tea. And the waiter said, no. We don't have Coke Zero on hand, but don't worry about it. We'll find some. And around the table, each person had their specific request, and each and every time, the waiter made it happen. Well, about halfway through the meal, one of the friends called the waiter over and said, Sir, I'm so sorry, but it's really cold in here. Could you turn down the AC just a little bit? And within moments, the waiter came back over to the table with a garment bag in hand, unzipped it, took out a freshly pressed pashmina and put it around the arms of her friend. Okay, Ray said, what is the deal? There is no way you are this accommodating. Well, the waiter pulled out a card from his pocket, handed it to Ray and said, well, this is our corporate philosophy. And on the card it read, the answer is yes. Now, what's the question? The answer is yes. Now, what's the question? I mean, imagine if this weren't just a corporate philosophy, but if this were our personal philosophy, our communal philosophy, for us to start with the assumption that it's possible. Imagine if we started not with the problems, but with the vision of where we wanted to go and of who we wanted to be. Now, as Jews, that's not all that foreign to us. A few weeks ago, we celebrated Shavuot, the holiday commemorating our receipt of the Torah. And the first reaction of the people when they hear that they are about to be a holy nation through this text, their first reaction was to say, Kol devarim asher diber Adonai na'aseh. All that God has said, we will do. Then Moses shares some of the specifics of the text. And again, the people say, Kol devarim asher diber Adonai na'aseh. All that God has said, we will do. The answer is yes. Now, what's the question? When I was ordained in 2011, I walked into a space that was not defined by yes. Jewish-Muslim relations in Los Angeles had decades of history of conflict. And I heard from many people that this would be a disastrous decision for me professionally, or that in the very least, that this was going to be a futile endeavor because of this history of intractable conflict. The answer that I kept hearing was no. And for me, as a pragmatist, no was not going to work. If the Jewish community is going to continue to thrive in the 21st century, we need to stay ahead of the curve. And it appears as though we have a limited window to build a working partnership with the American Muslim community as they continue to grow in numbers and in prominence. At a very practical level of Jewish self-interest, I felt the imperative to get this relationship unstuck. And I'm proud to have served at an organization that's become a model nationally and internationally for transforming relations. But beyond the pragmatic mission of Newground, there was a more important personal element for why interfaith work mattered to me. I was raised in an interfaith context. My mother immersed in the mikveh to become a Jew when she was 8.5 months pregnant with me. And while I was always raised as a Jew, I shared so many positive memories and celebrations with my Catholic family. I remember thinking specifically of the concept of forgiveness at a very young age and how Jesus inspired my Catholic family members to get over their grudges and made me want to know more about what Jewish tradition said about forgiveness, about the role that Yom Kippur plays in our lives. I can say without hesitation that I am a better Jew today because of my interfaith exposure. It was a central part of my Jewishness. And I would venture to say that navigating these boundaries and multiple identities is a central part of the American Jewish reality in the 21st century. But as central as interfaith engagement is to my own identity and to the reality of our historical context, it's also true that something was missing for me at Newground. I missed the more traditional elements of being a rabbi. The weddings, the funerals, the counseling, the teaching. I wanted that to be part of my everyday. But in an unexpected twist, something really fascinating happened when I started to think about the idea of synagogue work. I started to hear no again. Why go to a declining institution, people would ask. Synagogues are part of the past, not part of the future. Now, none of us is blind to the challenges of contemporary synagogue life. But there is no part of me that believes that an institution nimble enough to survive the past 2,000 years is now somehow obsolete. There are fundamental human needs that will not change no matter what the era. The need for community, the need for a place to grieve, the need for a place to celebrate and reflect, the need to shape the society around us in a way that reflects our values. That will not change. The synagogue has been that place for our people. But it's also true that we are thinking about these core categories differently. Community and reflection and celebration and grief and civic engagement, they look different than they did 50 years ago. That doesn't imply that the synagogue is no longer the place for these needs, but it does imply that the synagogue needs to evolve in order to meet them. Change and transformation, they don't only occur on the fringes of a community and new organizations. They can happen at the center. And this idea of innovating from within is gaining momentum in the Jewish world. And that's why I chose Temple Emmanuel. Here is a community that's a stalwart institution of Los Angeles that also has the courage and the excitement to reimagine itself with these changing realities. As part of the clergy team here, I will be working with young professionals and people interested in civic engagement, with the religious school and the day school to be part of this reimagining. Here at Temple Emmanuel, I was not brought in to be an innovator. I was brought in to serve a community where innovation and evolution are already core values. A community that has already collectively said, na'aseh, we will do it. The answer for all of us is yes, we will be a vibrant model of Jewish engagement in the 21st century. Now, in the Torah, after Moses reads the text aloud to the people in its entirety, they don't just answer Na'aseh the third time. They answer the famous phrase, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do it, and we will understand it. And according to one midrash, this was a little bit of a corrective to the earlier two proclamations of just saying yes. In the midrash, Moses says to the people, "Is doing possible without understanding? It's understanding that brings one to the doing." So then they said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do it and we will understand it. And I think that in some ways, this is an important corrective for me to remember and for our community to remember as we find ourselves in the midst of this incredibly exciting moment in Jewish history. Transformation is not an act. It's not an end. It's a process, and one that involves understanding how all of the moving parts work together in order for us to effectively tinker with the machine as a whole. I can't articulate how privileged I feel to be part of a community that has chosen me to be part of this process, or what I feel in my gut about this growing energy at Temple Emmanuel to be part of this community that has said, the answer is yes. Now, what's the question?